Hello, lovely people. It's Philanthropic February, day 2. I'm Nicola. This is Stitches and Slapdashery. And today I've got a couple of things I want to do. This morning before I went to work, I made a few more of these little hearts that I did a quick tutorial for in my vlog. I think it was vlog 139. So it wasn't the last one. It was the one before. Yeah. it was the intro one I did on January 31st. And this time I used a chunky yarn and a 6mm hook to make these, and the Karen Anniversary Cakes yarn. So the first three just came out in the pink section of the yarn, and then this one, pink ran out and it went to the white. And I really like them. I love the chunky ones. I should probably make some with really thin yarn as well, shouldn't I? And a skinny hook just to see how they look. Just going to run another one up right now. I actually timed myself making one of them this morning, and it took me 3 minutes and 15 seconds. I thought that was pretty good. 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And I was going to take some to work and maybe give them out, maybe to co-workers or customers with kids or whatever. And in the end, I thought, no, I better not. I better show them to you first. So now that I have shown them to you, I can put them in my bag and maybe take some with me tomorrow. And that can be one of my little random acts of kindness. A couple of times at work, there's been a pack of felt hearts that's busted open, and there haven't been enough of the hearts around to put them back into a proper package. And so I've given some out to some of the kids who've come through, and honestly, their little faces, they just love it. So I did that again today. A customer came up with a bundle of these felt hearts. She said the packet had broken open, and she had 20, and they're supposed to be sold in packs of 15. So I said I can manually put it through just by looking up the lookup code and give her 15. And so, of course, that left 5. And so I decided that the rest of them were going to get given to whomever I felt like giving them to. A little while ago, maybe it was a week or 2 ago, I bought some Valentine's themed rubber stamps at the dollar store. And I put one, I think it was a little gnome. Yeah, I think it was the gnome one holding a heart. And I've had it in the pocket of my work vest for at least a week. And I keep forgetting that I wanted to stamp some people's receipts with it while I'm at the till. I just thought, wouldn't it be rather cute to have a little Valentine's themed stamp on their receipt so that when they look at it later on, you might get a little smile out of it. I just had to edit that bit out because I had to count my 6 double crochets for my shell. Yeah, it was a good day at work. I did end up being on the till for part of it. Maybe half of it. And the rest of the time I was just doing go-backs, as we call it, where you're putting things back on the shelf that people have returned or changed their minds about. And I actually prefer that because it's a bit more varied. While I'm out on the floor, I can answer people's questions. And I usually learn something while I'm doing that. I learn about some product I've never heard of. Or I learn, like today, that an entire aisle of product has been moved to a different location. I had somebody asking for, what was it, something to do with diamond art today. And I said, oh yeah, it should be in this aisle. Well, no, it wasn't. It was in a completely different place. You've really got to be kept on the ball in that store. There's so many seasonal things that really nothing stays the same for long. I just noticed today as I walked in that in addition now to spring, which started to go out around Christmas, the spring decor, we now have Easter stuff. And that is now taking up the main seasonal display at the front. I have no idea what date Easter lands on this year, but yeah, it feels like it's actually not that long away because we've had such a mild winter that the trees are thinking that it's already spring and they're starting to bud. And that's actually really bad for them because if we have another cold snap well below freezing and the buds get all frosty and they die, that tree might not recover from it this year, which is really kind of sad. So there we go. Another little heart made. White with a bit of blue. So I am sure I will be taking some of those to work with me tomorrow and handing them out. If I had a longer break at work, I'd actually take my project bag with me. But when I'm on a short shift, it's only a 15-minute break. By the time I've eaten my food and gone to the bathroom, that's pretty much it. That's that 15 minutes used up. So I have an idea of what else I might want to do today. So I'm going to put these aside for now and take a look at my other idea. So this is what I'm considering using for my next project. It's a piece of upholstery fabric that my son brought me back. And it's rather lovely. It has a smooth woven background and then these raised almost boucle circles on it. And I have a piece that's probably 150 centimeters wide, which is about 60 inches. And the length of it is at least a meter, so at least 40 inches long. So I'm going to have to be careful because I did see a little bit of a pink mark on it right here. Hopefully you can see that. I'm not sure what you can see because I'm looking at the back of my phone right now, not at the front camera. So when I make these tote bags, I usually cut out a 20-inch square for the front, a 20-inch square for the back, and then there's a 3-inch square on the bottom corners for the boxy bottom. Now the back of this is perfectly acceptable to show. So I don't need to line it, plus it's going to be a bit heavy. I think it would be too heavy if I lined it. The thing that concerns me is, can my sewing machine handle the thickness of this? Because historically, my quilter's walking foot, well, both of my walking feet, have for some reason in the past taken to breaking my needles because they've tipped a little bit to the back and then the needle has hit the metal and it's broken the needle. So I mentioned that to the guy who came to service my machine and he sanded out a little bit on the feet, so it shouldn't do that, but let's hope not. So I think I'm just going to dive in and cut two 20-inch squares, and also need to figure out what I'm going to do for the straps. I do have some webbing, but I don't know if any of the webbing I have will actually go with this, being that it's grey and cream. So that's something I'm going to have to think about now. What I've done is I have cut the pieces for the bag. I've got myself a little scrap here, which I'm going to test out my sewing on first. I've threaded my sewing machine with regular polyester thread in a cream colour, and I've changed out the needle for a 9014 denim needle and put the walking foot on. So we've got two 20-inch square pieces of fabric here, and I tried to balance up the dots so there wasn't like half a dot here and a whole dot here. Top and the bottom I wasn't as fussed about. Actually, I probably should have been more picky about the top, because at the bottom it's going to be boxed, and so it's naturally going to be disappearing underneath there like that, but it's fine. It's level anyway. So two pieces, 20 inches square. This stuff frays like the devil, so I'm going to zigzag all the way around it. I could serge it, but I have wacky colours in my serger, so I'm not going to be changing those out just for this project. And then I've got two strips for the handles, which are 3 inches wide by 24. Now, the only reason I cut them 3 inches is that was the convenient size of fabric at the bottom of the piece once I got the big squares cut out. Hoping I'm not going to regret making them 3 inches, and I'm only going to fold them in like this, I think, so that I don't have 4 layers to sew through, because I think that would be a little bit crazy. So I'm going to do all that zigzagging off camera, and also the little testing out of the stitches off camera, and then I'll show you what's next. I've done all the zigzagging around the edges. I used a 4 wide and 2 long zigzag. Not too long, just number 2 long. I am covered in this fluff that's coming off here. Wearing this sweater was a bad idea. So I was going to clip the edges of this over, but I'm wondering actually if it would be more sensible to try double-sided tape. So that's what I'm going to try. In theory, it will hold it better while I am sewing the folds. Now, can I find the end of this? No, I cannot. I've got quite a bit of this. Let's find one where I can see the end. There's one. This is a double-sided sticky tape that I got from Amazon a while back. I can't remember the name of the shop within Amazon, but the tape was recommended by a friend. It's not perfect. I don't know whether it washes out particularly. I think it was designed for paper crafting, but it works pretty well for fabric. And in the case of this tote bag, it should be fine. It's never going to be washed, probably. And if it is, and it does wash out, even better. So with a heavy fabric like this, or with a vinyl, I can just do it as a single layered bag. With a thinner fabric, I would definitely line it. Ideally, with an unlined bag, it's nice to have a French seam. I just can't see myself doing a French seam with this fabric. It's just too thick, I think. That holds it beautifully. That is perfect. So the seams will be visible on the inside when I have finished it. Which is why I'm hoping the zigzag will stop them from fraying really badly. And as for the boxy bottoms, what I could have done is already cut the bottom corners out before sewing it all together and then box the bottoms. But the alternative way of doing that is to not cut them out at all and just mark them, mark the 3-inch boxes and then squish the corners, sew across. And I think actually that would be a good idea for this, and I don't even need to trim the triangles off. Because then I'll have more raw edges to deal with, won't I? So once I've folded this second one, I'm going to do a couple of lines of stitching. Actually, I'll probably have to do a few lines of stitching down those handles. And then I'll position them at the top of the bag here. I'll figure out where the center is. Position the handles. Baste them in. I ended up doing 4 lines of stitching down the handles. 2 over this side, 2 over this side. I didn't see much point in trying to stitch down the middle there because it probably would have been skipping in and out of the little join of the 2 edges. Then what I've done is positioned the handles right side down onto the right side of the bag, 3 inches from the center on each side. So that's a 6-inch gap there. And I basted them on. What I've done, if there's a lot of bulk starting out in sewing something, I'm using my little scrap here and I'm tripling it and I put it behind the walking foot because this hump jumper that I have doesn't work with my walking foot because there's too much stuff at the back there, too much equipment. So I'm using this to keep the back of the presser foot level, because that was when I was getting problems with breaking needles before. Okay, right sides together. I'm going to sew all around and then I'll box my bottoms. Now, there's a couple of ways I can do this. I could measure my 3-inch boxy bottoms from the edge or from the seam line. I think I'm going to measure it from the seam line, and that's going to be where I draw is going to be a stitching line, not a cutting line, because as I said, I don't think I'm going to cut. This thread is so perfectly matched to the fabric, I can barely see it. And then what I'll do is I'll measure it and draw it in on the other side as well, so that when I squish the corners down, it'll give me a stitching line all the way across. I don't have to guess. This is a great chalk pencil set. It's called Koh-i-Noor Versatile. I'm pretty sure I got it from Amazon on a friend's recommendation, and you get all of these chalks with it. Purple, pink, white, yellow, green, which is wonderful for different color fabrics. And they just pop out when you want to change them out. Not sponsored. All right, all I have to do now is squish this corner. And where my green lines match, right there and there, that's where the fold will go. Oh, this fabric is so thick. And also what I want to be sure of is that this seam line is matching with this seam line, because that will look way better when the seam is sewn and it's viewed from the outside. So it's a good idea to like push a pin through there. See, it's not lined up. Oh dear. And my pins are in, and all I have to do is sew along that green line. And then there'll just be the top edge to do. Boxy bottoms are done. This chalk will hopefully recede into the background. I don't know how easy it's going to rub off. Probably washes off, but I don't plan to wash the bag. By the time it's buried at the bottom of the bag, it should be fine. Now for my top edge. So if I pull my handles up where they need to be, that naturally makes the top of the bag fold down. And do a fairly generous fold over. I did a bigger seam allowance on the sides than I normally do as well. Oh boy, my little clips are not going to do the job, are they? I'm going to have to go with the big ones. Again, normally, if this wasn't so bulky, I would do a second fold. So I would normally go a second fold like this, and also fold that back on itself. But that, at the moment, would give me probably 8 layers of fabric. 1, 2, 3. All right, 7 layers of fabric, and I'm not even going to go there. I think that would be crazy with this fabric. So it's about 1 1/8 inches. Yep, and they're both about the same. So I'm going to throw in some of the small clips around the edge, and I will do 2 rows of stitching, 1 on the folded edge and 1 down at this edge, being very careful when I go through these extra thick handles. Well, that didn't take long. 1 finished tote bag. Done! Tote bag number 1 for Philanthropic February. So from a 20-inch square to 20-inch squares, I ended up with a bag that was 15 inches tall, because of the boxing mostly, but also because of the top hem. And it's 6 inches deep at the base. I didn't measure across, but I never know whether to measure from corner to corner or from seam to seam. But you get the idea. I think it's rather cool. And it didn't cost me a penny. Well, maybe it cost me a penny for the thread, but it didn't cost me anything for the fabric. I will have to go back in there, turn it right side or wrong side out, and get in there with my little snippy dippies, because there's still a bunch of threads and frayed bits trying to get away from me. But the inside looks all right. I've left the points on the base there. Didn't cut these bits off inside. The seam's fairly tidy. See a thread there that needs trimming. Yep, there's those two lines of stitching around the top. I went up to a 3.5 stitch length around the top. The seams I did at a 2.8, and I was very pleased that I didn't get any broken needles. Very pleased. I was a bit nervous in a couple of places. So there's a few little crocheted hearts that I can give out, hopefully to make people smile, and a tote bag for the women's charity for them to take their clothes home in. I wasn't going to start with a really big item, but It's what I wanted to use. I've had that fabric sitting around quite some time now, and I still have over half of it left, I think. I don't know if I'll make another bag the same. I might make something else out of the rest of it, but that's a really good start. So if you are making anything for others this month, or if you are doing any random acts of kindness or something to express love to the people in your life, do share in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Any good news, really. Let's just all share good news in the comments, even if you're not making it for anybody else this month. Good news is always welcome. So thanks for watching today, and I'll see you again tomorrow.